Hi, everyone, and welcome to episode 4 of the Business Leadership Series. Today, we're bringing on Jeff Braverman, a founder of Nuts.com. He has a lot of interesting stories to tell us, and we'll be back with him after the trailer. Welcome back, everyone. We're now with former CEO and current chairman of Nuts.com, Jeff Braverman. How are you doing today?
Very well. How are you?
Good. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get right into it. So your company, Nuts.com, has a very long and interesting history. Could you give a brief summary for the audience?
Yeah, sure. And feel free to cut me off if it gets too long. But my grandfather started a little nut store in 1929 in Newark, New Jersey. And kind of stayed that way for decades and decades and generations. My dad and my uncle went into the business. And just as a young boy, I just would work in the store. And it was really fun. I would spend time with my grandfather, my cousins, and so on. But really had no expectations of going into the business. It wasn't a good business. And I just had an idea when I was a freshman in college. I decided to start at the time. It became Nuts.com, but started nutsonline.com when I was a freshman. And some detours along the way, but kind of the rest became history.
So what inspired you to go online, so early before everyone else was?
Yeah, so I don't know if precocious is the word, but when I was in high school, it's funny here being in high school here, I would get special permission during like study break to go to the library to trade stocks because that was very early then. This was call it in 95 or so. So I was really in tune with investing and it was very easy then to make money because every internet company was going up. So I had experience and exposure to the internet more so than most people. But then look, suddenly dial up. Then we got to college. You probably don't even know what dial up is, but you do. So when I got to college, finally you could plug in and get a faster internet connection. And I just was like, wow, this internet's taking off. Why not sell nuts online? It was like, seemed a little kind of obvious to me. So let's just go for it. I put together a business plan. My family never had a business plan in however long it was in business by then, 70 years or so. Sat down with my dad and my uncle. They agreed to give me a budget of $500. You couldn't build websites back then for $500. Like this is obviously you're familiar with Shopify and all these things that you could pop up websites for dollars. It took me a little bit more than that. But in my second semester, I came home, I took the pictures for all the products and so on, and we launched the website in 1999.
So obviously, after launching the website, you guys went from a small business to a much bigger leader in the industry. How'd you deal with the volume of so many more customers?
So it didn't happen overnight. So when I was in college, I was still in college in Philly. So I wasn't in the store doing the work, but it was like you get a few orders here and there. It was early. We were like still ahead of our time. Amazon was just coming around. You could buy maybe at that time beyond books, maybe like CDs. Okay, not even this dates myself. Not even DVDs. So just a few orders here and there. And we could talk about it later, but I didn't go into the business right after college. I did banking for a little bit. And then I joined the business in 2003, and then lots of things happened, but finally I realized we're going to focus on the website. So to answer your question, I had this whole marketing plan at the end of 2003. Then it like flipped a switch and the floodgates opened, and so the orders were coming in 10x of what they were. But it's still small volume, right? When you grow off of a small base, massive percentage growth is not necessarily that. But we would just rise to the occasion. So as we got busier and busier, at first it was like, okay, we hired a few people, but it's like, no, you bring in friends and family. This is like an old school family business. We would let them eat and they would come in and help us for the holidays and so on. And then you start getting accustomed. It's kind of strange to say that, but for years we're going, let's say 50% a year. And now when you get to a certain scale, that's meaningful numbers. And we just it became normal for us. So yes, still being a family business, we would work, for the 3 weeks before Christmas. I would work 7 days a week, probably 14-hour days. And that's kind of what you did. So we kind of got used to it until, of course, if we have time to talk about until, of course, COVID came. Because that was a whole nother experience. But I'll pause there.
So earlier in your career, you worked at Blackstone. What lessons do you think you learned from there that you were able to apply to Nuts.com?
It's a good question. Look, I was really good I learned how to model in Excel really well. So that's been helpful for me across this business, across other businesses and ventures I've done. And kind of ironically, I've learned how not to treat people. So investment banking probably is softer these days. Back then, it was a different environment where it was common to get yelled at. Blackstone at the time, there was a story. It was notorious for someone like threw a stapler at someone. So it was a tough environment, pretty cutthroat, and probably it's a lot more respectful these days and so on. So literally, I was like, wow, this is like. So I learned the opposite of like, hey, I want to treat people better and I want to do something special on the people side of things. That's what I've tried to apply in my company. But I was only there. I was in investment banking for 7 months. So it wasn't that long. There were a few epiphanous moments along the way. But for me, frankly, when I looked at what I was doing and the work I was doing, and as a fellow entrepreneur, you'll appreciate this. I was like, wow, what if I really applied myself in something much more redeeming? Imagine what I could accomplish. And that plus a few other things gave me the courage to say, okay, I'm going to chart my own course here and go into my tiny little family business.
Yeah. So obviously, Blackstone does plenty of mergers and acquisitions. Now, you guys over time, you started as nuts, then started acquiring chocolates and fruits and candy companies. But what are you looking for in a merger and acquisition?
Yeah, and that's a timely question given my role transition. But look, historically, as we bought businesses, it was strictly opportunistic. So we got into the roasting business to roast nuts and seeds. A friend of mine who was doing that for us was selling his building, and I didn't want the building, so I just kind of bought his customers and bought his equipment. So that was opportunistic. When I bought the first chocolate business I bought, again, this was my favorite chocolate supplier. Like this company invented stuff like chocolate covered gummy bears we talked about earlier, but chocolate espresso beans. No one thought about chocolate on top of a coffee bean. So it's really history, not a big business, but a history business from the 1930s. And they were operating in 6 floors in the West Village of Manhattan. And their building was worth a lot of money. They were getting a little bit older. And another opportunistic thing where it fell into my lap where they didn't even have the wherewithal to call me directly. I was their biggest customer. Some banker contacted me, and that was exciting for me. It was one of my favorite suppliers, and in that case, I was just concerned about supply risk too. So I was like, okay, let me lock this thing down. I've had to buy, so the first few things I bought were just more opportunistic, or I had to. For example, the chocolate gummy bears, which is literally the best product in the world. We make them in Sweden. So this company that I bought invented them, kind of in the 1980s, but they made them in Sweden. I've now had to buy the factory twice. I bought it once, sold it during the pandemic, and then had to buy it back again in early January just to maintain supply. There was risk that I wasn't going to get supply, so I had no choice but to buy it. But when I look to the future, for me, I don't have to buy things. I think for us to continue to scale, we could still grow organically, but like it's interesting to me. I love to learn. I love diving into businesses. I'll roll up my sleeves and get really my hands dirty. So I was in Washington, just something fell across my lap. Last week, I was in Washington State looking at a chocolate business. And if it's something that's super differentiated and could separate us further apart from everyone else out there, it's like, how do you Amazon proof a business? That's what's interesting to me. Find businesses that are maybe manufacturing, doing some of the harder work, have certain proprietary, whatever it happens to be, that we could then latch on to our business. That's what's interesting. So this next chapter, I'll spend more and more time thinking about these types of things, but only for the right opportunity.
So you talked about chocolate gummy bears, chocolate espresso. Given all your diverse product offerings, is the main income still primarily from nuts?
No, I would say nuts, even though we're nuts.com, nuts are less. I think they're probably about 40% of our sales.
40%?
Yeah, so like my favorite product is our organic dried mango. That's like a top 3 or top 5 seller these days. So it's branched out well beyond nuts, and we have thousands of products. Still, a lot of the nuts make up the key nuts make up lots of revenue still and profit, but we have thousands of products now.
So now that you stepped down as CEO, are you still involved in decision making, and are you exploring any other ventures?
That's a good question. So I thought this would be much calmer and less stressful. Um, but I'm a glutton for punishment. So we've been planning this transition for a while. I hired this president a few years ago because I decided I have the luxury to do what I want in life. Can I manage people? Yeah. Do I love doing it? No. And you'll see with reviews and 360 reviews, it's just like, I don't love this stuff. I can be a very direct person, but I'm always not the best at. It's very hard sometimes to give tough feedback, and so on. So I found the right person. There's still a transition period, so there's certain areas like merchandising where I'm still have one-on-ones or contracting some bigger stuff.
So, obviously you said, the business has been in your family for many years. And you said eventually you want to be removed from it. Do you think you want your kids to be involved in the business one day?
Yeah. So let me correct it though. I don't know if I want to be removed from it. I want to add value in the ways that again, which I enjoy and what I'm good at. And if there's not that opportunity, it's okay. But I think some special things that I can do is again, identify other companies and be able to plug them into the system. As far as my kids, it's I'm like a farmer of yesteryear where I have 4 kids, right? Farmers would have lots of kids, they need a lot of helpers. So we'll see. 2 of my kids are professional actors right now. So maybe not. So I got 2 other ones. It would be nice, but it's not necessary. I've also stepped down as CEO at the age when I was 42. So I'm still super young. My kids are young. I want them to do what's best for them. For a long time, it took me a while to reconcile this. But as much as it's a 3rd generation business, it's also a 1st generation business that I've started this. So there's this legacy, and I would love that to continue. But this was a little tiny 4-person business before I came in, and for me, I don't care. There's not this ego that I need to pass this thing down and so on. But it'll be nice. I think there's something special about private businesses. I think there's something special about family businesses. Much of the economy is made up of these types of things, and I would like to say they're probably more ethical. They're probably more ethical than other organizations over the long run. For me, I appreciate it that we get offered to ask people to invest and buy the company all the time, and I would just say no. I think over the long term we could do more societal good, by being a private family business. But who knows? Like I said, my oldest son, he's 11. We got plenty of time. If kids want to join it, then great. That would be wonderful. But there's no pressure.
So a couple years ago, I saw you on a commercial with Capital One. What's your relation to them?
That's funny, Capital One. So, what'd you see? It was some blog thing.
It was something with COVID.
Yeah. It was a little video or something you saw.
Yeah.
I've been angling for that. I was trying to get the national TV commercial, but that hasn't quite worked out. This is a funny story. A colleague of mine years ago, I feel like it was right when I was buying the chocolate business in New York. This is 2016. He saw a commercial on TV for a 2% cash back card by Capital One. So I applied for the card. This is me myself applied for the card, but they gave me a credit limit, which was $50,000. At the time, we spent lots of money on the credit card. At the time, it was significantly more too because we were able to put FedEx and Google and stuff. And they turned that off. They wouldn't let us use the credit card for that. So this was huge sums of money we're spending a month. Many, many times this $50,000 limit. So every 3 months, it would be me, not even someone on my finance team, I would push to get the limit up. And I was persistent. And then one day I get a call. It's funny, I was working in the warehouse, and I get a call saying, "We created a new card for you. You're our first one. It's a $500,000 line and $1 million line," and so on. So I was just part of that kind of family is all. I built a nice relationship with them, helped them when they needed help, and then they filmed some nice segments about us. But yes, I still haven't gotten the national TV commercial yet.
Maybe one day.
That would be nice.
Now, to end it off,
Yeah.
I like to ask every single guest this question. What, in your eyes, what do you think it means to be an effective business leader?
You have to be an effective business leader, you have to care. You have to believe in yourself and what you're doing, right? With passion, because there's lots of ups and downs, and you want to get through the downs. And I think just you want to look, I'll twist this a little bit and more of like for an entrepreneur too. Is like you want to really build something that's lasting and makes impact in the world, because you gotta, like I said earlier, you gotta believe in what you're doing, and you gotta work really hard. There's no such thing as, even look at professional athletes. These guys work most of them work really, really hard. So like you're not getting anything for free. So you just gotta like set your sights on something, dig in, overcome adversity, take risks, and just be good to your people. And I think the rest follows.
All right. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode. To end it off, it was great having Jeff Braverman on today. Make sure to check out our next episode coming out. Thank you for watching.